Is the flow of plastic cooling dominated or shear dominated? This is a vital question to understanding how much the part will shrink, and maybe even more importantly, what the variation shrinkage, or what we call warpage, is going to look like across the final molded part. I'm Alex Baker, and welcome to another Advanced Tips and Tricks, where today we'll be looking at how to adequately evaluate the filling temperature result in Moldex3D Studio. When we're thinking about how the part is going to warp, we need to understand how the temperature variation looks like across our part geometry. There's two sources of temperature variation in the plastic molding process. The first one is the temperature variation through the core of our part or through the middle of our part geometry's thickness. And the second one, typically implied by the cooling stage of our molding cycle, is the temperature variation across the surface. In this video, we're going to be looking at the temperature variation through the core of our geometry. And something that's very important is to recognize how the PVT information in the Moldex3D material file interacts with this temperature distribution. In this example, let's think of two surfaces of our part geometry having different temperatures. This is usually going to happen during the cooling stage, but we can actually apply the same fundamental principle to what's happening through the thickness of our geometry. To answer the question of which way this part is going to warp, we need to understand the PVT relationship. PVT stands for pressure, volume, temperature. On the x-axis, we have temperature. The y-axis is specific volume. And then the third axis over here represents pressure. We're going to isolate out the pressure. We're going to assume an isobaric condition. So we're going to just use this top red curve as a representation of how our specific volume is going to change as the temperature changes throughout the molding process. These two temperatures, the top surface and the bottom surface, let's say they're about 10 degrees different from one another. Those would represent two different starting points on the x-axis. We can draw a line from each of those points up to this zero pressure curve, and then over to represent two initial starting volume. The hotter material starts at a higher volume, the colder material starts at a lower volume. This should make sense. As the material cools down, it shrinks. As the material gets heated up, it expands. So it makes sense that a higher temperature material has a higher specific volume. Ultimately, when this part is ejected from the mold, it is going to equilibrate down to room temperature. We'll represent the room temperature down here at the bottom left, and that room temperature also corresponds to some volume. Now, the distance we have to travel along the y-axis to get to this final room temperature condition is going to represent our volumetric shrinkage over the molding process. Being that the hotter material starts at a higher volume, the shrinkage for that higher material is going to be larger over the entire process than where the colder material is. We can represent this visually by putting some arrows on the top and bottom of our part. The top surface is going to shrink inwards more than the bottom surface is, and so therefore the material is going to warp towards the hotter surface. Now, like I mentioned, this is a representation of a surface temperature variation, but we can apply the same concept when we're talking about the temperature in the middle of our part, which is implied by the filling stage. The filling temperature result in Moldex3D allows us to visualize not necessarily the temperature on the surface of our geometry, because that material is in direct contact with the mold. What I'm more interested when I'm looking at the filling temperature result is what's happening through the middle of our part's structure or through the core of our geometry. And so there's a couple of tools that we can use to break open this result. The first of which is the clipping tool. The clipping tool very simply allows us to take a cross section of our geometry and allows us to see the transition of temperature from the mold surface through the skin into the core. So this red area right here, this is what we represent as the core of our part. I can move this clipping plane up and down by simply left click dragging. And I can change the orientation of this plane by using the XZ and XY toggles. And I can move each of these independently as well. Now, changing the orientation of this plane, I can visualize how the temperature changes over the length of flow. But when I go to this orientation, I can't really see too much of the temperature variation through the core. So I'm going to manipulate my scale so that I can see this color distribution a little bit more obviously. I'm going to take the minimum on my scale upwards by left-click dragging. And this allows me to see where the highest temperature material is in my part geometry. In this case, it looks like the highest temperature material in the core of my geometry is closer to the gate, and that indicates that as the material flowed, it cooled down. But this is just one cross-section of our part. It would be nice if we had a way to cross-section in multiple directions and in multiple locations on our part, and we do actually have the capability to do this through the slicing tool. The slicing tool in Moldex3D does a very similar thing to the clipping tool, except instead of cross-sectioning our geometry, it projects the results onto a plane. I have the same capabilities here as I did with the clipping plane. I can move this plane up and down by left-click dragging. I can also toggle on the other directions. In this case, I'm going to do my cross-flow directions, which in this case are the XZ and XY planes. And where the slicing tool gets its benefit over the clipping tool is the ability to place multiple planes. So I can put 10 planes in the XZ direction and 10 planes in the XY direction, and we can turn off the planes using the little show plane checkbox here. And now we can see not only what's happening in that one cross section, but also if that agrees with what's happening throughout the rest of the geometry. And in this case, it does seem that that's the case. The temperature at the gate is the highest, and that temperature decreases over the length of fill. This should fundamentally make sense, as when we get further away from the heating source, the energy that we're giving to the melt gradually dissipates out into the cooling system. This causes the temperature to decrease over the length of flow, and is pretty much what will happen in most molding circumstances. This is what we call as cooling dominated flow, but the opposite is actually possible. I could actually get the highest temperature material at the end of fill as well. Let's look at an example where this is the case. In this analysis, I have run with a faster filling time and some other different process conditions so that the shear heating is a little bit more exaggerated. If I go to that same temperature slice, right, and I can modify my scale, we can actually see, I'll bring down the maximum on my scale a little bit. We can actually see that the highest temperature material is actually at the end of fill in this analysis. This situation is what we call shear-dominated flow, where the temperature actually increased over the length of flow, and this is caused by the friction of the moving material through the core rubbing up against the colder material that's in contact with the mold. There's a gradient or change in velocity from the material that's at the mold surface, which would be right here, and the material that's actually moving through the core, which is right here. That gradient in velocity causes friction, and if that gradient is high enough, the friction effect can cause the material to heat up more than the energy dissipation out into the mold. This is a very important balance to pay attention to, as whether we get shear dominated flow or cooling dominated flow is going to dictate what happens throughout the rest of our part's cooling, is going to dictate how the part cools, and more importantly, as we just saw with the PVT relationship, how the part shrinks. The hotter material in our part is going to shrink more than the colder material, and this will cause the part to warp purely because of what happened during the filling stage. In an ideal world, we're actually able to balance the temperature throughout the core of our geometry by balancing the shear effect with the cooling effect. This would make the core temperature of our geometry much more uniform, and therefore the shrinkage of our part will be much more uniform. One last way to evaluate your temperature balance is by using the isosurface tool. If I exit out of the slicing tool, I can go to the button right below the slicing tool, which is isosurface, and this will allow me to break down the result to one singular value. The isosurface isolates one value on the scale. So instead of having the entire blended contour from red to blue, we're isolating a particular value. That value of the isosurface arrow here is shown up at the top left corner, and I can use this slider to shift my isosurface to one side or the other. You can see the arrow over here shift accordingly. As I go to the highest part of my scale, the highest temperature region of my part will become apparent. And this is another way that you can visualize where the highest material in your part is located. I can do this conversely for the other example here, isosurface, And then I can move my isosurface towards the top, and we can see that the hottest material dissolves towards the gate, whereas in the previous situation, the hottest material was at the end of fill. These visualization methods are vital for determining where the hottest material is located, and that will allow us to understand whether we have shear-dominated flow or cooling-dominated flow. Thank you for watching this Moldex3D advanced tips and tricks. If you'd like to see any other topics covered in the future, you can leave a comment down below. You can leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the Moldex3D North America YouTube channel if you'd like to see videos like this posted in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.